Hello, it's Laura Victoria Ward here with Lord Gaylord, my assistant in getting down and relaxing on the floor. So I am going to offer you a session of micro movement with the 4 elements. So we are going to start with ground, earth, getting grounded through our bones, feeling into the earth, and thank you, earth, for being there for us. Then we are going to move into breath, air, the lightness, the thing we're all breathing, keeping us alive, oxygen. And we'll move into water, finding more fluid movement, and then we'll probably end in fire, just bringing ourselves back into our spirit energy and our sort of drive to be in the world. So I'm going to start right away, laying down on the floor. I'm actually going to move around to the other side of the big man, and I'm going to lay down on my back. You could do this seated, you could do it in a chair, on a bed, on a hard floor, whatever works for you. One of the reasons I do it on the floor is because the hardness of the floor is going to have a different effect on my fascia and give it a little bit more intensity and more like a foam roller, more response. If I smush into a bed, it's not quite the same. And I like that response. If that feels good to me, my body needs that kind of movement. So starting with the idea of earth, I'm going to start to tune into my bones. I'm inviting you to join me in this. This is a participatory event, hopefully not just watching, but also tuning into your own body, feeling into the element of earth. And for us, it's really that connection to the planet through the ground. We can feel gravity. Our bones are the heaviest parts of our bodies, so letting the bones drop down into the floor, allowing the sense of bone to become very heavy and connect into the floor. And as I do that, I begin to slow down. So bone is the densest tissue in our body. It's a connective tissue. And it's very, if we looked inside a live bone, it would be a very wet environment that is also made of all of these small compartments connected and stacked together. A surgeon who then became a sort of biotensegrity advocate, and I can't remember his name, said inside of us it's all colloids, emulsions, and foams. So if you imagine that bone as sort of a harder version of that with fluidity in it, and then inside of each bone is marrow. So we have a very dense fluid in our bodies, a very dense, more liquid than the harder part of the bone. And our bones are also very three-dimensional. They're not like straight lines. They're very curvy, and I want to say curvilinear. Like if you think of like what a snowdrift looks like, that's like what our bones look like. There are convex and concave aspects. There are nodules and points, and they're almost sometimes spirally as well. So we're not thinking of these straight lines, but these very alive forms that are actually subject to change within our body. The density of them can change. The water content changes as we get older. But we don't need to get dry and crusty. We can stay hydrated with this idea of bringing in fluid movement. So far, I feel like my text has been very dry and crusty. So I want to bring a little more fluidity to that idea of the bones and our connection to gravity. So as we land on the earth, landing in our bodies, landing in our bones, we can tune into the inner guidance of our own bones, of what they tell us, the histories of our bones, the histories of our ancestors, these old bones within our bodies. Just listening in and allowing any movement that comes up to move. So allowing shifting, aliveness, maybe some sort of growing and shrinking with the breath. Or maybe it feels good just to drop down and just be there. also very aware of my cranium, my jaw, my teeth. And as I bring my awareness to these parts of my body, the bones, the teeth, the harder parts, maybe even the fingernails, toenails, they start to enliven and wake up. So the invitation is to wake up this very earthy component of being human, our bones. Letting yourself listen and maybe nudge once in a while to engage with some movement in any way that feels interesting and good. So I'm really pretty much doing micro movement. I'm just kind of rippling and waving through my body and feeling as my body moves how it sort of shifts from one sort of bony landmark through maybe a softer surface to another bony landmark. Back of my hips, back of my head, my elbows and shoulder blades. And while I'm here with these big bones, I'm also just going to bring online this idea of connection. Connection of my feet to the earth, of my legs to my body, connection of my pelvis through my spine to my rib cage through my spine, out through my arm, through my spine to my head, also out through my arms to my fingers, thinking of this whole skeleton. But often I think when we think of a skeleton, we think of something kind of dry or maybe even plastic and sort of dead. Tune into this idea of your living skeleton, your living sort of pulsing alive skeleton. Feeling into that. So I guess that's where part of the fire comes into this idea, like we're alive. We have life force moving through us. So tuning into that relationship between your aliveness and your bones. And this connection of the pelvis, the rib cage, and the head. So we've got our guts, our heart, our lungs, and our mind. And all of that is connected in this bony way. And I'm really into the bones now. Imagining that you can just move from the bones. So in a way, it's not muscular and effortful. It's very easy and bone movement. I think Tom Waits has an album called Bone Machine, and I think there's some really good bone music on that. So thinking into feeling into bone movement. That could be the bones just shifting their relationships to each other. The bones in my forearm, my radius and ulna. When I'm extending my arm out like that, the two bones are parallel. When I spiral, this radius spirals over the ulna. So ulna is that joint, radius spiraling over. So let's just give yourself some touch on your arms, feeling how those bones move. Or maybe don't give yourself touch, it's really up to you. Tuning into the sense of aliveness, the aliveness of the bones, the aliveness and movement of the bones. And then from there, taking it into the breath. I said this was going to be quick, but maybe it's not. Finding the rising and falling of the breath, the air in your body, the air quality of body. So often, breath can be accompanied by a sense of lightness, airy-fairy. Going from that very grounded, earth-connected place up towards the sense of breath and lightness. And imagining breathing into every cell in your body. So every cell is breathing. Every cell taking in the oxygen, releasing CO2 as it moves through. So we're these alchemical processes where air comes in and changes, right? Oxygen comes in and changes form. And as it's changing form within us, it's nourishing us. So working with the breath from that idea. Breath as nourishment, and I'm going to allow my arms to get into the dance a little bit. Arms almost as the wings of the lungs. I'm also going to free up my diaphragm, and ideally thinking of freeing up my abdominals so that I'm not contracted and holding it in, but I'm allowing expansion, allowing a sense of fullness, allowing movement with the breath so that the whole thing, my whole torso, can be very alive. Sending the breath deep down into my lower extremities and also into my lungs and upper ones. So if I just think about it like on an anatomical level, when I inhale and my lungs fill up, my diaphragm's moving down, it's just pushing down on my organs. If I allow that push to fill up, so I'm not trying to squeeze my organs in, I'm giving them space. So the breath is coming in, and that movement of breath creates this micro movement environment. Can help release and relieve your body, especially if you let it go all the way down into your pelvis. Not that we want to give short shrift to the upper body and the upper back and everything, but deep breathing into the belly. And if it's possible, start to extend the exhale. As I extend my exhale, I become aware of the wind, the quality of wind. Letting the alive nature of wind inform the movement of my body. Could even think of like the wind in the trees, or the wind, how it affects, or even the wind on water making waves. And allowing your body to participate in any way. You could be the tree, you could be the wind, you could just be your body breathing. Bringing the imagination online, in sensation, in imagery that arises, to just awaken into this participation of the qualities of air coming into your body, informing your movement, giving you a sense of maybe fullness or lightness or whatever. It could be anything, spirally, swirly. Freedom. Maybe even feeling a sense of suspension at those edges of the breath, where it's almost at the end of the top or the bottom of the inhale and the exhale. Feeling the shifts of energy as your breath is sort of in the center of the breath, as it's moving and filling. If it's at the top of the breath, at the bottom of the breath, just feeling into all of those possibilities within your movement. Maybe even growing and shrinking with the breath, or adding some rolling. So my movement's gotten a lot bigger than micro movement. I'm just listening into what feels good and interesting in my body right now. Feeling tremendous gratitude for the sense of breath, for the lungs, for my lungs. It's with breath that we can make sound, right? Ha, ooh, wah. If I didn't have air traveling through there, it wouldn't be any sound. So I'm going to allow that to segue into water. We are, I think when we're born, we're like 90% water. And as we get old, we get a little bit less watery and more dense. So our skin is going to age, or everything's going to age, but it doesn't need to become dry. We can stay hydrated through movement by bringing this sort of life energy into our body through movement. So movement hydrates tissue. And fascia loves slow movement. Slow movement is going to affect the fascia in a different way than moving quickly. It'll give it more chance to adjust. And our nervous system is routed through our fascia. So when we're working with hydrating, using the idea of water in our body, water hydrating our tissues, hydrating our organs, sort of greasing up the inside of our body, lubricating, inviting in the sense of waves to move through. Just imagine what that is. Imagine a wave moving through your body. Breathing into it and rippling. Finding a sense of fluidity, of ongoingness. The intelligence in my finger, the water in my finger, is equal to the intelligence in the water in my toe. The intelligence of the water in my knee is equal to the intelligence of the water in my nose. So the information in one piece of water has like I'd say a quantum relationship to the information in water everywhere. And if we came from sea creatures, then we have this long history of relating to water. And since we're so filled with water, it's nice to relate to it. And again, find some gratitude for the water in our body. If we're lucky to drink really pure, clean spring water, it's alive water. I'm not talking about water that's been in a plastic bottle for 2 years before it gets to you. I'm talking about water fresh out of the ground or fresh from the mountain. The aliveness of the water. So inviting your own movement to sort of filter and enliven the water in your body. We have the closest thing that we have in our bodies to fresh water is our cerebrospinal fluid. And that is bathing our brain and our nervous system, our spinal cord, bolstering it and protecting it. So if I bang my head around, it's going to keep me from having a brain injury, ideally. And it filters through our body 3 to 4 times a day. So we can give it a little extra help by creating some fluid movement in our spines. Even if we just roll, even if I didn't try and move my spine and I just slowly rolled from side to side, even that's going to have an effect inside my spinal cord. And I want to imagine that my nervous system has lots of space. So in that fluid river of my spinal cord, that's a Liz Koch reference, in the fluid river of my spinal cord, as it moves out through the creeks and eddies and tributaries of my arms and legs, there's lots of space, there's lots of room, nothing's too constricted. As I move, I'm creating more space, I'm giving myself more capacity for healing, for aliveness, and I'm also tuning into my internal guidance, my internal healer, any kind of pantheon of spirits, gods, goddesses, anything that you believe in that will help you on your journey. Invite it in. Invite him, her, them, it. Could be the earth, could be spirit, could be God or a goddess or a whole pantheon to participate in your dance of aliveness and awakening. So in a way, I feel like the more time we spend in this sort of healing zone of meditation, any kind of work that you're doing on yourself, whether it's positive affirmations, going to see a psychiatrist, any kind of group therapy or group development, growth stuff, anytime we're doing that, it's going to spread out beyond ourselves, right? When we start to heal our own things, we start to heal more things. More things start to heal. Relationships can start to heal. It could just be your relationship with yourself. I mean, that's the biggest thing that we have to heal, that we can work with. How do I feel about me? Can I forgive myself? Can I be gentle and kind with myself? Can I accept that I'm imperfect? And when I have more space inside myself, and I've released some of the constrictions and entanglements and holdings that are in my body, I have more space in my heart. I have more space in the world. Only inviting you to let go of whatever it's wise and skillful to let go of. If you have something that you're holding onto and it's protecting you and you need it, hold it, keep it. Never let go until you're ready. The intelligence in your own body, if you start to tune to it and turn to it and listen to it and interact with it, will offer a lot of information, a lot of the capacity to shift. And often when we start to do this work, you can find that you need more rest. And that might just be because we tend to be a society that doesn't rest, that we go and go and go and go. So I have to say, like, you might need to sleep for a few days. You might need to do slow, easy things for a year. Like, look what just happened with the whole pandemic and everything. The whole world needs some time. So, whenever possible, giving yourself the support to show up for yourself, and to grow up, and to clean up. That's what I learned today from Michael Taft in his non-dual vast sky mind meditation class, which this is my second round through it, and I've known him for over 40 years, or maybe a little less than that. So yeah, we need to show up, clean up, and grow up. And this type of movement for me has just given me such richness in that. But often the message isn't, okay, now I did it, now I'm ready to go. It's more like, oh, now you stepped into the water. It's a lot deeper than you think. So take your time, be gentle with yourself, be gentle with the people around you, and give yourself nourishment in this sort of baby process that you're going through. Relearning how to be in a body. That's what I like to think of it sometimes. Like if we were babies and we just came into the world, or even aliens just arriving in a body, how would we move? What would be interesting? Like, oh, I don't know what it can do, and I haven't seen everybody else do it. I can mimic all the other people, or I can find out what's delicious and delightful and interesting and play with that. Bringing the awareness into sensation, bringing the awareness into movement. And at a certain point, like, I'm not thinking, okay, I'm gonna move my hands, or I'm gonna do these things. I'm just allowing my body to ripple, to wave, and to move like an octopus, like whatever feels good in any way that feels good and interesting. And yes, I have had years of different types of movement education. But in this place, I really let go of that and just let my body do what wants to happen. And I also, when I started doing this, was really, I was started with continuum movement. So this is like my version maybe of what I do with that. But when I started, it wasn't like, as I said, it was like, oh, now I need to stop doing this and stop doing that, and I can't do my regular workout, and what about this? But now I sort of embrace it all. I need all of it. Very much into maximalism. Like, I need to go for a hike, I need to walk, I need to pole dance, I need to do ballet, I need to do my somatic fitness classes, which are, you know, they're kind of like the gym with a somatic lean, so a more conscious awareness lean, but I still need to do some of that repetitive exercise. I still need that too. Anyway, this has been a very long journey of 25 minutes, and I think I'm going to bring it to an end. So what I want to invite is just to let the movement come to a stillness, come into not talking, as she says, and then she's going to start talking. Just coming into listening for a couple of deep breaths. Giving myself a couple of breaths to process, to come into stillness. And then I'm going to take one hand up on my chest and one hand on my belly, and actually I'm going to give myself a little hug and squeeze, and the whole movement with that, a little rocking. Little, big. Any size, whatever feels good to you. And honor that I have been here. If you have made it this far, I highly honor you too. Thank you. I do teach classes that you can come to. Thank you to the moment. Thank you to what came before, and thank you to what will come ahead. And may you have a blessed evening, day, morning, wherever you are.